All right. I'll get through. Still a nice active sheet here of a few different things. I'll go as quickly as possible to get to your questions. Quick update on the airport. If you listened to the agenda conference yesterday, our airport director, Matt Coughlin, gave a pretty robust update to council that explained a little more of the technicalities. So I'll leave his explanation on record. If you have any questions about the technical aspects of it, we can certainly either connect you with the airport folks. But I can tell you in a general sense where we are is that the lights east and west are now operational as well as north and south. However, it's not a setup that is, it's still something that needs to be improved. You know, they got it to functional. It's not necessarily where they need it to be. So, but the bigger point here is that the lights are working as of this moment on both runways. So there should not be, you know, of course at this point, and we've shut down the north-south because of construction, and then of course reopened it given this. So we're not expecting any more delays, cancellations. Understand that I believe 7 flights in total over the 2 days were canceled. And actually, if you look at our year-over-year data for the same time period, it's up double digits in percentage. So about 23,000 people on those days, about 23,000 people went through the airport. So from a grand scheme of things, we've all been frustrated by travel inconvenience, and certainly we understand the frustration, but it might be a little bit of a misperception that we were shut down or that there was, you know, cancellations all over the place. Given the fact that this was certainly unforeseen, you know, having an electrical fire with lighting on the runway, you know, I think I'm pretty proud of our team out there to get, you know, we talked about 7 cancellations, and again, if you compare it year over year in that time period, we've actually had more folks coming through our airport than we did the year before. So that's that update. And again, any technical questions that you may have, I'll make sure we can get you connected or pass those on. Malcolm Young, we had a good meeting with the leadership at Lighthouse Christian, and they were in agreement that moving forward with a $40,000+ feasibility study to just find out what it would cost to fix it is probably not the best plan of action. That was our thought, but since they hold the lease, we as I told you guys now for several weeks, we wanted to do right by the leaseholder and give them that opportunity. And so they indicated to us they also agree that that's probably not the best plan of action. So where we are with it now is our Parks and Rec department is working directly with Lighthouse about honoring what is a 365-day out, which is in the lease. Either party could leave in 365 days. How we plan to be good partners and be good neighbors of the leaseholder is that the city will obligate itself to reasonable access to other facilities or be a conduit to make sure that they can, that their school and their basketball team would be able to use facilities for the next 365 days. I think that's not something they asked. That's something we self-prescribed because we believe that still honors the spirit of the lease, but also allows us to move on in terms of any thought of potentially a multi-million-dollar improvement to an old building. So good progress there. We still haven't gotten all of that ironed out, but we are in conversations currently with Lighthouse and our Parks and Rec department about figuring out what their needs are and how we can best accommodate those. So I'll give you another update in terms of that progress next week. The Pensacola pier, we've been calling it Community Maritime Park Marina, but I believe it's what the sign is the Pensacola Pier, and that opening is Thursday, May 25th. The slips, the 48 slips will actually open at sunrise at 6 a.m. On Thursday, but the ribbon cutting will be scheduled for 3 o'clock on Thursday, so we'll have an event out there. And certainly appreciate our media partners sharing the word on ours. I've mentioned to a lot of you already, there's a lot of different departments that have played some role, big or small, in getting this. You can count probably 6 or 7 departments that are helping make this happen. So very, very appreciative for them, and we feel good about the plan that we have in place. And certainly, we'll learn as we go there as well. But yeah, it is free. It is a day use marina. There cannot be any overnight And that's not a policy that we have or even that Fish and Wildlife have. That's a Army Corps of Engineers permitting situation. So that's not necessarily something that is an option at this point. So free day use 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. during the summer, and then when we get to daylight savings time, I believe we're going back to 7 p.m. I think it's 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. or is it 6 to 6? Excuse me. So once we get to later October, of course, we'll continue to update you. But for the foreseeable future through this summer, it'll be 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Will be the hours at the marina. The skate park, we are still finalizing. We don't want to formally roll out rules that we can't enforce, so what we're going to do, but I can give you an inclination of where we're going, which is my intent is to have the skate park open instead of sunset, to have it open until 10 p.m. But to be able to do that and say that that's the rule, we've got to have our security, our enforcement in place to make sure that when it closes at 10, it closes at 10. As well as the lights and how we will handle the lights after 10 p.m. So we'll give you a more formal announcement of when that will be set to begin. But that's the intention that we have right now, and we continue to have the intention of entertaining a potential third-party operator to come in and what I believe is not only enhance the experience of using the skate park, but also it's for it to be more inclusive for more kids that want to get into skateboarding. Right now, we don't really have the infrastructure in place to enhance it the way that it could be enhanced, given how large it is. And I mean, it's an amazing park, and of course, we've been getting nothing but positive feedback from the skating community on the facility itself. But we think that there's potential opportunity to extract even more value out of such a nice park if we could have someone that lives it and breathes it day to day. Rents skateboards, gives lessons, those kinds of things that could really move it to the next level. So that will take some time, as you can imagine. We got to put a lot together on that, but that's the direction that we're going at the moment. We are going to be posting, hopefully by the end of the day today. I'd mentioned to you yesterday was 6 months in office. We're going to post our update on the kind of a progress update on the transition team. There was 91 recommendations, and we consider 80 of those as actionable. And what I mean is 11 of those 91 are more philosophical. There's not really a way to grade it as completed or in progress. It might be just kind of a general overall direction. So if you extract those and you say we have 80 recommendations as of right now, and we'll have this posted and we'll get you updated, but we have 8 completed. We've got 38 in progress, and what you'll also see when we post this update is we will identify what we see as the next 10 items. So even though we've got 38 of the 80 moving right now, we'll kind of give a priority list of what those next 10 items on from the transition team would be.
It's up now, cityofpensacola.com/performance.
Okay, all right. cityofpensacola.com/performance, but we might be tweaking in some of the stuff, just clerical issues, but that's where it will be, or might already be up currently. All right, the Jefferson Street parking garage, we've mentioned that a lot, and this really goes back to a lot of conversations about parking and what I believe. I'm a believer in paid parking, but I'm also a believer in when you charge a user fee for something that you show the user what they're getting for their money. And so our initiative was to take the Jefferson Street parking garage, which interestingly enough, I was talking with Lisa Dees, and when we were cutting back and cleaning up the parking garage, there was a a plate there that said it's called the Park Place garage. So that's actually what the name of it was. I guess decades ago there was a. So when we uncovered, we call it Jefferson Street. Maybe we can migrate it over to what it was originally named as. But we took the garage as that first step to say, users of downtown parking, this is what you get for your money. Which it wasn't in a great state, I wouldn't say, from a lighting perspective to pressure washing. So all of those things are underway. So here's where we are with it. We've added new lighting. including replacing stairwell and entry lights, improving interior lighting, replacing exterior light domes. We pressure washed the parking garage interior. I know that is, if it isn't already completed, I believe it is. I know it's underway. We had a safety assessment and recommendations from PPD. We added additional cameras inside, and the things that are to be completed aren't all the way done yet. So yeah, I'm sorry. The ones I just mentioned are completed. The improvements to be completed is new and improved landscaping. You're starting to see some of that now. A welcome sign coming in, painting and restriping, and an upgraded pay station. So those things are all going to take place, and then painting at the parking garage is scheduled to begin in early June and will take about 4 weeks. And the garage will remain open during painting, but certain sections will be restricted as we go through that. So when those dates are finalized, we'll let you know. But again, that's what we're to consider $100,000+ investment into our largest parking structure in the heart of where we charge users to park. So, if we're going to say, here's what you get for your money, we thought that would be a good place to begin to make that a more enjoyable experience for folks. Hot shell cleanup, if you haven't driven down Bayfront Parkway, I do almost every morning. There's a noticeable difference. You'll see all those Phragmites removed, and all the debris removal around the Hot Shell Memorial has been completed, as well as the gate, the fence that for what was allowing people to access and be underneath the memorial that has been closed back up. So really pleased with that getting completed, and I think it certainly adds beauty to our community. I think it adds a safety element to our community, and it adds to the obligation that the city took on 14 years ago, which is that we have the obligation, or we signed up for the obligation to take care and maintain that space, and so I'm glad we were able to get that done. We have an update from our Miraflores burial ground study. Adrian Walker's here and can answer any specific questions, but I know we had started some preliminary GPR. And fortunately, it's funny when things like this synergy happens. GPR is very expensive to do, but actually Pensacola Energy not only has GPR equipment, but they also have a technical expert in using it. So I know that there's been a very small area that was studied, and there was nothing necessarily found, I guess, except an old gas line inside the park. But that was really kind of more of a kind of pilot step, and I think we're going to assess from here what the next step is, whether we expand that reach or that footprint. But if you have any specific questions about that, Adrian's here. She'll be able to answer those with probably more clarity than I would be able to. Memorial Day closures, there'll be no press conference for me next week. I'll be out of town, but city offices facilities will be closed Monday, May 29th, and as always, sanitation will, because of that Monday holiday, sanitation will be one day later. So I think that is it for me. Happy to take your questions.
So Mayor, what is the name of what used to be called the Day-Use Arena? Is it Pensacola Pier, or?
What is, I want to make, it says Pensacola Bay Pier.
That's what the big sign
Yes,
says.
so that's what, yeah, so it's going to be the Pensacola Bay Pier. Yeah, that's what the signage says we've been calling it Community Maritime Park, frankly, as a placeholder, because there has been no name. There was no, I don't think there was ever any formal discussion around a name. It was just identifying the location, and then that there was a marina. So yeah, so when we put up the signage and everything that's there, it'll be Pensacola Bay Pier.
What was the thinking behind the 10 p.m. Closure? I'm thinking people are going to the ball game. Ball game's over 9:30. They walk down the street, have a few, and then they're in a hurry to get. Was that a state rule, or where?
No, well, and you're assuming there's no extra innings.
No playoff games. Come on,
So, no, what we were looking for is the value behind having access to the waterfront is for people to be able to interact with it. And so doing sunrise to sunset didn't really make much sense for us. If you were just want to take your boat from somewhere in a surrounding area and come in and have dinner, you wouldn't even be able to do that. So that was really the thinking behind it. It is day use, so obviously past midnight you start to make it an overnight thing. So I think it was not mandated, no 10 o'clock. That was just a decision collectively by our departments to say what's that happy medium between making sure that you can come down and we maximize the value of it, not only for the visitors that are coming to see us downtown, but also for downtown businesses and shops and restaurants and whatever else. That's part of the value of the access, is to make sure that those people are coming in and coming and buying dinner and those kinds of things. So that's the thought behind it, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And look, like anything else, we'll probably learn a lot in 30 days, 45 days. Who knows? We may not necessarily with timing. We feel pretty good about that, but there'll be some nuances of things that we can do better. That just always happens when you have something new. But we have a gate on it, so that will be open at 6 a.m. and closed at 10 p.m. We'll be using parking enforcement. Our staff there who are already out there, they'll be helping us make sure that when they come close the gate at 10 o'clock, and as we've told them, if there's extra innings, we won't close it at, the game is over at 10:01 on a home game night. We're going to be realistic and logical about when it closes, but ultimately, we at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we strike that balance of letting people come in and enjoy downtown or whatever they want to come do in the city of Pensacola, and also continue to respect the idea that it is mandated as a day use marina.
On the Malcolm Young gym, what are the plans or status of the building as far as going forward? Is it going to be demolished?
Yeah, I mean, we've looked, obviously, when we realize what kind of financial situation we're dealing with to renovate the building or to repair it, obviously you start to speculate about then what's the next highest and best use. Now, we haven't decided that. Obviously, there's demolishing, there's selling, but if you look at the value, 95% of the value of Malcolm Young is the property. I mean, I think the assessed value that was put on the building, even when this lease was signed, it was less than $100,000. So, obviously, we've got to now see what the best decision would be. I can't come up with a scenario where I would feel comfortable with us selling the property with the building, even if we sold it as is, because we know what the problems are with the building, and I don't know, I would feel some indirect responsibility if we were to, sell that building, knowing that it's in a certain condition, and whether, even though it would be the obligation of the new property owner to make those improvements, not us, I still have a little bit of an issue with that, just knowing what kind of hurdle it would be to get that into even, inhabitable condition. So, so we don't know yet. I think our options are certainly to demolish it. What we would do from there, I'm just not sure yet. But so you think about that. But as we continue to say, we wanted to make sure that those conversations really haven't had any substance to them until we had met on Thursday with Lighthouse, and we weren't going to get too far down the road about what ifs if there was something that they were going to throw us a little bit different. So we'll see. I mean, I think we're going to explore all options. I mean, we obviously know attainable housing is a significant issue. It's a big parcel of property. I mean, anybody logically could draw that conclusion. And what do you do with a building that is in essence totaled? I mean, it's worth, the building as it sits is worth significantly less than what it would take to get it to where people could even be in it. And so that limits your options, limits the spectrum of what you can do with the property. But we are in a attainable housing crisis. Is there something that the city can do in terms of partnership with that? We haven't had any substantive conversations around that yet, but those are the things that we'll start exploring.
Mayor, is there a timetable to have a discussion on the continuum of care?
I know there is a discussion between city and county. I know there's some county officials. I know we'll have several people there coming up. Yeah, this Friday. So I know that conversation, I believe, including the COC, the current COC.
Is that open to the public?
I don't think it's staff, a staff level only, but it's not. I don't know of any county commissioners that are going. Allison Patton might be going. Might be the only city council person, but I'm interested to see what comes out of that. Again, if there's technical experts both at the city, county, and privately that, including the COC in the room, and can come up with, what a viable solution is. Certainly, I'm ready to. We've had those conversations. We're looking at ARPA dollars. We have ARPA dollars that are set aside for homeless reduction, as well as for $375,000 for Lotus campaign, which they've of course told us that that it's not going to be work or be sustainable here. So I mean, we even I can't speak for the county, but if there was something that could help us move the needle, and there was even some kind of financial aspect of it, that's something I would entertain. That the city, not just say we're supportive, but is there something that would need to be done for this to start? Because as you know, that whatever the solution is not going to be a very, very clean one. I mean, I think there's going to be, is it a nonprofit? Is it something that how it's structured, who can take it over? All those things I think are going to be pretty murky. And so I'm really excited to see what comes out of Friday, where I think we'll get that first step and kind of see where we go from here.
Mark, the park.
Yeah.
Was there any, what's the next step?
Which part?
I think Flores.
Oh.
The ground penetrating. What's the next step?
Yeah, I would let Adrian speak to that. She's been on top of. We just had our last meeting on the 19th, but Adrian's been leading up for us, and I'll let her speak to that.
The next step is to kind of take in what we learned yesterday, doing that kind of limited exploratory GPR data collection, and try to make the best move moving forward. As the mayor said, this is a very costly type of survey, and we're starting to get estimates coming in, and kind of the lower end of things can be every bit of $10,000 up into close to $25,000, depending on the scale. So from the last meeting that we had of the community advisory group, there was a lot of discussion about grants. So we're looking into grant funding, possible partnerships with UWF as a way to continue it. So I really need to just kind of sit down and put everything together and try to make the best recommendation for how we should move forward.
How big of an area was taken down yesterday?
Since it wasn't necessarily controlled, I can't really give you an exact measurement, but from what we can tell based on how that historic map lines up with modern day, it looks like we would probably want to survey at least that southwest quarter of the park, but it also extends up under the road, and that's a whole other thing to deal with. But the grand scheme would be to survey the entire park, and that's where you're getting into $25,000.
Can you tell us what any results yesterday besides?
So yesterday, like I said, it was very exploratory, and we were just looking literally at what we were seeing on the screen in real time. So that data isn't going to be processed like you normally would through a software. And from what we can tell, we didn't see any anomalies at all. We definitely identified a gas line, and I think it's a testament to how great this equipment is for Pensacola Energy, because that's what they do. But we did not see any anomalies, anything out of the ordinary. And I think that really just speaks to the conditions. There are so many factors that go into play here when you're trying to do GPR on burials that could be every bit of 150 years old or older. Because of what we know from the historic record, these are very likely to be lower socioeconomic people. Maybe they didn't have access to normal burial practices. They may not have even been in a wooden coffin. They might have been in a shroud burial, which is just a cloth wrapped around, and that degrades over time. The body decays over time. So trying to see that from 150 years ago is very difficult.
So no surprise, any surprises or any surprises?
No surprises yesterday. I mean, I was hopeful that we would maybe see some anomalies and give us a little bit of something to kind of plan and work towards. So now I really do have to sit and think about, because there is a cost associated, how do we want to move forward, and also not spend money that we don't necessarily have budgeted. So, yeah.
Thanks, Adrian. Yeah.
Mayor, what was the impetus behind the CRA discussion on the boards? Is there a perceived problem or maybe inefficiencies? there were some interesting comments came out of that.
Yeah, that was the council and Don had brought forward. This was the second workshop. There had been a previous workshop that was just talking about Parks and Rec Board, EAB, CRA. I'm missing one or two others, but I think it was just kind of a let's see where our feet are and what value what expectations do these boards have, what value do they bring, how do we make them operate more efficiently. So I think CRA was within that. And, the conversation was we have an East Side, West Side, and Urban Core CRA. Obviously, you look at the dollars and cents, Urban Core is the significant portion of those dollars. And like other boards, not just CRA, sometimes there's engagement issues, and getting people to sign up for these boards. And I think it was just let's stop where we are right now and see if there's better ways to operate these boards. Now, also understand at this point, these are all boards that are council nominated, so obviously when you think about EAB, Parks and Rec, the goal of those boards for the administration is that if we need some level of technical expertise or something that we want to kind of vet before it goes to council, then it's a sounding board, so to speak, and and what that specific value is. So that's our interaction. So my feedback is really based a lot on that. At the end of the day, these are council boards, but you look at it, and some of these haven't changed since 2013. And that was only 3 years into the strong mayor form of government. I think there would be some value in if I was able to nominate, to some of these boards. If we're struggling to find people to nominate, and then remember, the council feels even indirectly limited in that should they only pick someone that's in their district, well, the administration would have the entire city. And so what we all want is these boards to be as expert as possible, as engaged as possible. We all want that. So if there's, I think where it sits at this point is Don's going to, go back and the council executive and take the feedback from all of us and kind of prescribe maybe potential options or some kind of enhancements, modifications to what happens. But I mentioned about CRA. Maybe it makes sense to have one large CRA board with representation based on the amount of revenue generated. And so maybe it's 1 or 2 seats for the East Side, and then 2 or 3 for the West Side, and significantly more for Urban Core. And I think that would work because those dollars have to be spent in those areas anyway. So there was a concern raised to say, well, if there's limited membership from one of those CRAs, then what happens if there's more votes outside? Well, it's self-policing because those dollars have to be spent in those specific CRAs. So if that move would get us more technical expertise, more engagement from folks in these neighborhoods, and they feel like that they're having a greater impact, then I think that would be a good thing, both in the CRA board and any of the other boards that we discussed. As I always said, chalk it up to my private business experience. But if we do something and there's not the demand for it, we look for how can we make it better? How do we make it more efficient? So I think it's a good conversation to have. I don't, again, I kind of leave it in the hands of the council and Don to see what they come up with. But I shared my thoughts on ways that we can make it better. And look, all of us, every council member, myself, have been asked to be on many boards over the years, and what do we want? We want our time to be spent wisely. We want to know that when we're committing our precious time during the day that we want to be creating value, so it really works both ways. I think it's the duty of the city and the council and the administration to if we are going to have these boards and they are relevant and let's make sure we're respecting the citizens' time as well. And so I think this isn't just a discussion of what we prefer. I think it's making sure that we enhance it to the point where there's value for the citizen being giving of their time, and that those boards are providing value to the council and to the administration. Yeah.
Following up on the Jefferson Street parking garage, you mentioned painting. What does that entail? Painting the...
Yeah, I think I'd have to get the entire bid, but I mean, it's the painting, just the exterior, not over the mural. Yeah. No, I think it's just the old paint that's, within the structure itself. So lighting was really the important one. For me, I think, we were definitely lacking in that area in terms of it feeling safe at night and all that. And then there's more nuance that will come with that in the coming months. We got a lot of signs kind of all over the place and trying to make that look cleaner and simpler for a user. There's a lot of how you enter, which used to have the old toll booths there, and there's some complication because there is some utility that runs under that speed bump, and so this isn't it. We're kind of looking to continue to enhance, but if we want this structure to be the center point where we say, hey, anybody come to visit us downtown, we know we've got spaces available here, then we've got to make it welcoming. I mean, not make it an afterthought or make it a second choice to having to circle around every block for street parking. If it's our largest structure, let's make it something that you look forward to going to experience and interact with, not your second fiddle or second choice.
Then, on the Hacksaw monument out there, is there a plan in place to make sure it doesn't get back into that state?
We've had several conversations around that. The last spend was in 2019, I believe. It was about the same. Maybe it was $25,000. But that's a microcosm of a larger conversation we're having. Perhaps spearheaded by this, is to say, what is our list? Not just our parks, not just our community centers. What has the city obligated itself over the years, over the decades, to maintaining, and what's our plan? Having a structure around a plan moving forward. It's not to play whack-a-mole isn't easy on Parks and Rec. It's not easy on Public Works. It's not easy on the mayor's office. So I think we are in progress now of getting our arms around what is it that we are obligated to maintain, and what is that plan? Our 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plan, because we don't want to go 4 years and to the point where it becomes a problem, and that's how we're solving them, is that we should be able to have that a little more formal and a little more orchestrated. It takes a lot of departments, again, to make sure that works. Sometimes it's right-of-way maintenance that could fall under Public Works. Sometimes it's falls into Parks and Rec. So we're going to get all that really and if you were to go to a higher level than that, really as this entire initiative on getting our arms around maintenance, and making sure that we take care of the things that we have. That this folds right into that and it's why I'll tell you guys I'm going to be hesitant moving forward about taking on the maintenance of for someone to build something, and then not saying that we would never do it. Of course, we'll always entertain those things and we'll look at them, but if there's significant maintenance expenses, I have to think about the taxpayer. I mean, and if we were to go figure out what the bill for that is over 10 years, would the taxpayer be interested in having us do that? And so it's always a step that I'm sure the city has taken to be good community stewards. I mean, nobody's done it because they want to do something wrong or that they want to spend taxpayer money, but you start 94 parks, 10 community centers, and now you start taking on perpetual obligations, in perpetuity that we now have to spend tens of thousands and eventually get into the six figures to maintain, are things that we have to be very careful about. The same way we got to be careful about spending $100,000 on something else and make sure that it's doing what's best for the city. So, what I could say moving forward is we're going to certainly have a higher standard of expectation, and that we have a lot of clarity, and that we fully understand what we're taking on before we say that we're going to maintain it forever.
Mayor, I'd like to circle back to the transition team
Yeah.
update. You said a couple of months ago that it was a collection of good ideas, community thinking, all assembled, that these were tactical details. So when you say that you consider some number of them actionable, what does actionable mean? Does that mean it fits into some master plan, or did the mayor decide, well, let's do this one? What is the rigor that goes into an actionable decision?
It's not as complex as that, honestly. And you'll see when you look at the list, the 11. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but you'll see them. It's something more philosophical. Meaning it's hard to say mission accomplished. It might just be go and, it'd be good if the city, had an attitude about X, Y, and Z that's like this. Well, how do you say mission accomplished? How do you say, so I want to be fair when I say things are in progress or things are completed, that, you know, the easy thing for me to do is say, well, all 11 of those were completed because they're philosophical. There's really no way to track them. I'm kind of doing the opposite to say, hey, you know, we still are mindful of these, but these just might be, you know, things that you post above your above the doorway, but when you're on the way out, as opposed to something that you can say, hire, you know, start a new grants office. Well, we can check that box and say that we've done it. So that's really all it is. It's not so much a priority thing for us, but you'll kind of see when you look at that list what we're talking about. It's just more things that we really can't, you know, we can be mindful of, but there's really not a way to evaluate ourselves on whether we've completed them, if that makes sense.
Any update on Pensacola Airport traffic in the month of April?
I don't have that in front of me, but I will. But certainly can get that to you. In case we can work and get with Matt. I'm happy to get that to you. Anything else? All right. Awesome. Thanks, guys.